Hello, friends. Welcome back to Trending. Today is Thursday, May 1st.
Mayday.
Happy May Day.
Happy Mayday. Cue Justin Timberlake.
Yes.
It's gonna be May.
That poor guy. He's never going to live down it's going to be May.
No.
It's going to be in his life for the rest of his life.
Yeah. It will be.
Okay. I don't feel too bad for him. He's doing all right.
He's doing all right. Yeah.
Yes.
You doing all right? Okay, then we move on.
Yes. Well, really quickly, you were in Atlanta. You're kind of getting ready for a big transition. How's everything going? How are you feeling? What's life in Joe Skillen look like
There's
these days?
still some blanks to fill in, but we got start dates and preaching dates for the summer. Starting to get even asked to do a wedding, in September.
Nice.
So that's coming together. Ezra's got a hockey team to play for, so that's big. And we're still kind of house hunting, all that stuff. But it's getting real, man. It's going down for real soon. So, anyways.
Well, we continue to just live in denial here in Ridgepoint.
Yes.
Because we're still very sad, but excited for you. Probably, 4 more trendings?
4 more trendings.
So soak them up while they're going, and
Yeah.
we'll enjoy the last few weeks here.
Yeah, man.
So.
Yes.
All right, we've got a friend with us today.
Yeah.
This reminds me, back in the day before you were here, Joe.
Okay.
We did something, kind of similar. Brent and I, we used to do a Facebook Live thing every Thursday called the Midweek Rewind. And every week I would put one of my little action figures on the table with us. We would never address them, but there was just a new Marvel person with us every week. So This was actually your idea for us to talk about this today.
Yes.
Well, why don't you tell us what we're talking about today and why we have our friend over here.
Yes. So there's a brand new Marvel movie coming out. I don't know much about it, but I feel like this is your beat.
Okay, yeah.
And you just need to know. Like, I feel like things are always slanted my direction on trending because you're the one who knows this topic, so I'm going to give it to you. And so I feel bad every single week when it's you're the one coming with questions and just kind of listening to the aimless harangue.
That is false guilt, man. That's false. That's what this thing is. You're the genius, and I ask you questions. That's what people tune in for. That's why our friends are watching.
No, this is supposed to be partnership. This is not first chair, second chair. And so at any chance over the years, I'm we got to give Matt a chance to really tee something up. And so Marvel is your beat.
Yes.
I feel like you have the PhD in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I think I had I had a PhD in Marvel in about 2019. But I feel like I've lost some of my credentials recently. So anyway, I feel like Endgame was, I don't want to geek out too much, but the road up to Endgame was just perfect. I feel like since then they've kind of struggled. So I'm not as into it as I used to be, but still a big Marvel fan.
Right. But there is a fresh movie coming out. It's getting rave reviews, even comparing it to as good as Endgame. Now, maybe they're just thirsty to get people to come view it, you know, because there's probably a lot of people like you who are that was the peak, and we've been struggling ever since. But it has an interesting plot, or at least the previews. My curiosity is officially stoked.
Yes.
And I can't wait to go see it. I know that you and Tilly like to be, Grandma and Grandpa go into the movie theater with sharing the popcorn and all that stuff.
We're not that old, man. You're older than me.
Let's put this aside for a second. Have you ever smuggled anything into a movie theater?
Oh, absolutely. This is being recorded, so I need to watch what I'm saying carefully.
I think the statute of limitations have lapsed, so you're okay now.
Quick side story. I'll try to keep this very brief.
All right.
We went to Mays High School.
Yes.
There was one day at Mays when something with the water line went out, so they had to let us go early. So we had a free afternoon. So a bunch of us went to the movies, and we went to Dylan's first before he went, just to see what we could bring with us. So the best, most impressive thing I've snuck into the theater is macaroni and cheese.
Wow.
I was one of those deli macaroni things. So I just stuffed it in my pocket. So I was eating deli macaroni while we were watching, I think it was one of the Shrek movies at 2:00 in the afternoon on a school day. It was the best day ever.
So my friends used to smuggle in cans of soda or pop.
Oh, that's easy.
Yes. And they would wait until, remember that preview where they were just trying to go, shh.
Yes.
And they would, and they would be this giggle. But the best one I've heard is somebody actually smuggled in a large pizza. So they used a wheelchair and put the pizza on their lap and then a blanket over that.
Wow.
And they totally sold it. This is
level.
just my handicapped friend. He needs to be in the spot. And the next thing you know, he's just passing slices around and stuff. So anyways, okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, back to regular scheduled programming.
Play. Yes.
So I know a little bit about this movie, but not a lot. So here's what I know. So it's called Thunderbolts.
Okay.
And apparently there's an asterisk at the end of Thunderbolts, and apparently that's part of the plot, but we don't really know why.
Okay.
It's an interesting movie, I think, because it is kind of all of these anti-heroes. Like they're not really villains, but they're definitely not like the good guys.
Right.
It's this kind of ragtag group of people who they've got either some kind of superpower or they've been trained a certain way or whatever, but they're always not the hero. They're always kind of, they're not bad, but they're mischievous. They have maybe mixed intentions.
Yeah.
A lot of them have a pretty dark or at least difficult past, and so that's this group of people. So Bucky Barnes, also known as Winter Soldier, is one of them.
Yes.
But then again, I need to look at my notes because I don't know this super well yet. But Yelena Belova, who is Black Widow's sister,
yes,
she's one of them. Bucky Barnes, Red Guardian, who's also in the Black Widow universe. Ghost, who is in the most recent Ant-Man movie.
Okay.
U.S. Agent, which I think he might be one of the more compelling characters, but we can come back to him.
Okay.
And then Taskmaster. So it's this group. Again, there's not a whole lot I know yet, but I guess the U.S. government kind of brings these guys together for some kind of nefarious government-adjacent plot. Okay. So that's kind of the gist of this movie, is these ragtag team of anti-heroes, which there's kind of been, so Marvel, these are all Marvel characters. The other big comic book franchise is DC. So a few years ago, they had the Suicide Squad, which is kind of a similar feel, all these anti-heroes coming together for... So it's been kind of a thing in superhero movies recently. Marvel also had Venom, which Venom's kind of another anti-hero. So I think if we can spend a few minutes talking about that, I think there is kind of this interest in not necessarily this really clean lines of good and bad, but this kind of in the middle people. You know, Chad, just briefly beforehand, I think we're drawn to that because that's kind of who we are.
Yeah.
We're not always heroes or villains. We're always kind of trying to do our best to, you know, be on the good side, but if we're honest, we're all in the middle. So, did you have anything prepared you wanted to go through there?
Well, I think what I think is interesting about this is, I mean, American life, American culture has not been the first one to create stories, particularly fictional stories like these that are compelling to watch. And I think we need to train ourselves whenever we watch a film or read a book. Like, there's a few things going on at the same time. I mean, a good writer is, of course, trying to be understood and appeal to the individual watching the film or reading the book, but they're also addressing like a general philosophical thing in the air. And I think sometimes, like, it took me a long time before I tried to tune into that, because I think for the most part, I just wanted to be entertained. You know, just go, I need to kill a time in the afternoon, and so this is the movie, and it's going to be fun to go with my friends, and so all that's fine. But I think it's because of the spiritual life is we never stand in the same river twice, including before and after we watch a film. So, like, for those who say, I'm tired of the agendas, I just want to go be entertained, there's a good chance, like, if you and I walk out the same, when we walked into a theater after a movie, then they really appeal to exactly who we are. And then that's another set of questions that we can ask ourselves, right? Yeah. And so I think that what's been fun, particularly about characters like Loki and some of these anti-hero films and miniseries, is they are not using the same plot lines as we've normally heard of stories, which, yes, there is a protagonist and an antagonist, but they've like confused all of them, because like in ancient literature, actually Joe Bendowski and I were like talking about this on Wednesday morning this week, early in the morning as we were killing time before Bible study. It's how like the trickster is a key feature in some ancient writings. Yeah. And how the trickster character is like in Jacob. The trickster character is kind of in the story of Joseph and his brothers, right? And so we don't know what to do with a character like that. Because once again, we're trying to evaluate, are they good or are they bad? Right. And when we don't know, like scene after scene or even film after film, like it messes with us. Yeah. And I think that's been some of the best stuff about the Marvel stuff. Is they're not just trying to print money by saying, okay, we're going to give these epic films and predictable things like, you know, the Deus Ex Machina that comes at the end of the film that we can all anticipate, we feel good about. Yeah. It's like, no, like we're actually we're going to take you into some deeper waters you've never been before. Yeah. Because there's some conversations to have culturally, some conversations to have personally about how we're interacting with these films. And so that's what I've been so eager to see the next film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I feel like they're starting to use some different literary tools in order for us to talk about some stuff that's either going on in the world around us what's going on deep in the world within us. And so that's what I'm just so fascinated by.
Yeah. I think it will be a good, interesting movie. Like, we haven't seen it, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm excited. To see
Yeah, I
it.
guess you're right. We probably need to give a disclaimer.
Well,
if this movie tanks, we had no idea.
Yeah, we have no idea. We're just speculating.
We have a hunch.
Yes, definitely. Let me throw one Marvel thing at you, then I'd like to go back to.
Sure.
I think it'd be kind of fun to look at, I don't know, Jacob or Joseph or a Bible character and
Sure.
do kind of a similar analysis.
Yep.
But did you watch Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney Plus?
It did.
So you know about John Walker, who's the U.S. agent.
Yes.
I think he's the one in the Thunderbolts story. I'm curious to see what they do with him because I think he's an interesting character.
Okay.
So people don't know. So after Steve Rogers, who was Captain America, after he kind of goes in the sunset and retires, they're trying to find who's going to be the next Captain America. And the government kind of props up this guy, John Walker, and they call him, they say that he's going to be the next Captain America. He's a war vet, kind of a good leader, kind of an all-American looking dude, kind of a obvious choice to take up that mantle. But he's just, he's a likable guy, I think, but he just doesn't really meet expectations of what people think Captain America should be. And then I won't spoil it too much, but in the end, something happens and he gets angry and kind of loses his cool. And I think that's kind of his anti-hero moment. He's no longer the hero. He needs to refigure out who he is. But I think he's a super relatable character because he's a normal guy who's given a new responsibility. A lot of people think he's not up for the task. He's trying to prove him wrong. I think all of us know what that feels like, right?
Right.
So I think that's just a compelling character study, and I'm curious to see what they do with him. Before we jump to Jacob or Joseph, do you remember that storyline? What kind of jumps out to you about that character? And what?
I mean, once
parallels
again,
are there?
I just think like how courageous for these writers to say like we have to understand or at least imagine that they didn't say we're going to make this one decision just for this mini series.
Yeah,
Like they had some plans for it, right?
Yeah.
And they knew that they couldn't get to this movie plot without covering some ground here.
Yeah.
And so like the foresight to do that. And you can imagine like the creatives in the room who, yes, they want to get their work done to move on to the next thing, but to have the courage to say, we've got to complicate this a little more.
Yeah.
Like we've got to add some layers to this because it'll pay off
Yeah.
in the end. It is that I think more than anything else, like more than just the product that's made, I'm just so fascinated by the people that they probably gather who are prepared to be courageous enough, not just to follow the standard lines of the industry
Yeah.
that's always been before, but be like, no, like there's more that we can do if we could take a chance. Because everybody needs to be willing to take a chance. So let's start over.
Yeah.
And let's take this assumption of this hero, this person that we would all assume should be, candidate number one, and complicate it a bit.
yeah,
Is everybody okay with that? And then everybody in agreement, and then going with that.
Yeah.
And I think it's just going to be cool to see what they do with the plot. So
well, again, that's all of us, right? Like, I think that's why it's so relatable, is because we all fit that mold. So
yes,
I'm intrigued. I'd like for you to do your Joe thing
do the Joe thing
on,
Okay.
Jacob or whoever you want to from the Bible.
Yes.
Who's a good example of an anti-hero who, because I think we briefly mentioned this, that we're drawn to simplicity. We want someone to be good or bad. Like, we don't want to have to wrestle with, I think a brain's just like simplicity, especially when we're reading a story. We want it to be really clear. This is the good guy and this is the bad guy. Here's what we want to happen. But the Bible's full of people who aren't neatly in either category, right?
Yeah.
And again, I think we are also in that category. So let's do a little Bible trivia here. Who would you put in that category?
Well, I think this is like a red pill or blue pill matrix type moment, because if we really could slow down, read and observe and be honest, like there's not a single character that is predictable, that holds their course towards godliness. I mean, everybody is quite complicated. Like we think it's going to be Noah, for instance, and man, he kind of does a thing, and he's the guy that stands against the current of his day. It seems a preacher of righteousness, the writer of Hebrews says. And what's the first thing that he does? Like he loses control, and in a moment of fury and anger, curses beyond what he should have. He loses cool in a moment, right?
Yeah.
We think Abraham's gonna be the next one. I mean, he leaves his family. What a courageous thing! But he messes up all the time. Like he's dishonest often. We think of David. Okay, David's a man after God's heart. Before that's his fame and renown. Before he's done anything, and sure he's got some great exploits. People admire him. Men envy him. But then he does some ghastly things, either directly or indirectly. So like we just over and over again. Mary, the mother of Jesus, even like she And one at the beginning of the gospel story, she's courageous. She wants whatever you say, Lord. But then she's a complicated character in the Gospels, right? The disciples of Jesus, they leave their nets immediately and follow Jesus.
Right.
But they're rascals, like all throughout. They're not worthy to be emulated.
Right.
And so it seems like the agenda of the Bible is to say, we have this mechanism within us is to find somebody to admire, to almost like not just to emulate, but maybe even to idolize. But the moment we get there, like they do something that spoils it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the mechanism that we need the most. We say, use these people, like look at these people for sure, learn from them, but look beyond them, look beyond them. Like don't put them in the view of seeing God. Like allow them to be like a window into viewing God. They're going to be imperfect, they're going to be deeply flawed. So yes, we can use them, but don't lean fully on them for your support, because there's only one who really qualifies for that. And so it's a unique journey the Bible takes us on, because if that was going to be the case, 5 characters early on in the narrative would be great, and then we can move on.
Right.
But we're tempted again and again, and it's almost like we have to continue to take this moral medicine. Because this seems to be a feature. So Rene Girard, who I'll mention in a couple weeks, so I get to preach, he talks about ancient literature and how it seems to be like this is why we look for these stories, because we look for someone to mimic. We are intellectually ready to be born, not in 9 months into a pregnancy, but we're not physically ready to be born. We have to be carried, we have to be fed. Like people have to really come to our aid in those regards, but we're intellectually ready. And neuroscientists, they would say it's because our brain is so wide open to like learn about life by mimicking the people around us. And we do the same on the come up, morally, intellectually, looking at for vocations. We want to mimic people, but it seems like we should not mimic someone all the way.
Yeah.
Because they're either going to let us down, or we're going to turn into the same complicated people that they are. And so maybe the life of faith is, yes, you need mentors, we need guides, but we need many of them and not just one of them. Yeah. And ultimately, like these guides lead us to the doorstep of Jesus, so that we can ultimately look to him as our authority, guide, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, as the writer of Hebrews says, so that we can put our trust solely in him. But along the way, we've got these, moms and dads in the faith, partners in the faith that continue to, in a very imperfect way, but still helpful way, continue to lead us into the presence of God, and so that we can ultimately learn how to rely and trust on God alone for the sake of the tenor of our life. So I think that might be one of the mechanisms of the scripture text and why we should reflect on it. Look for guidance there, but also look beyond that guidance to the God who is ultimately calling us to be his. So,
yeah, that's good. Yeah. We'll kind of start to wrap up here, but one kind of just practical takeaway that I wonder if we can wrestle with. I think it's good for us to remember that I think we're anti-heroes. Sometimes we're good, sometimes we're bad. And so is everyone around us. Yeah. I think especially right now, we're just so quick to label, put in the categories and pick sides. And there are very few actual heroes, right? So I think we all have things we are strong in and areas where we're weak, right? And we need to rely on each other, like you just said. Yeah. And just remember that very few people are actual straight villains or heroes. We're all in the middle somewhere. Right. I think that's good for us to remember, especially in our current cultural moment.
Yeah. So. And I think we need some sort of a mechanism because life gets messier and messier the older I get. And so we have to have like maybe a hierarchy of values that helps us to sift this stuff, because yes, just about everything can be helpful. There are certainly things that are way less helpful than others. Okay, but how do we sift through all that? And I think maybe American culture is discipling us, say people who are very attractive, very successful, like those are the values that we should prize. But I think the life of faith tells us that those things can fail you again and again. Like that runs out. Like you could be well-funded today and bankrupt tomorrow. You can be very attractive today, but man, father time catches up with all of us, and we just can't beat it, right? Like at some point, we all our bodies begin to break down, and we become less and less attractive people. Like, I wish it wasn't that way, but it is, right? Right. And so, what are the things that are good? And I think that's what the conversation has been hosted every generation is: what is the good life? How do you pursue it? And then how do you continue to maintain it through all the complexities, the twists and turns, the bends of life, right? And so I think what I've been working with is I love that Jesus's ethic of love seems to be the most enduring thing that's worth pursuing. Is What does love require in this situation? And sometimes the answer is not ready on the surface, so we have to dig in. We have to think about it. I think also, and this is something that maybe this could be the theme for next week because we're running out of time now, but I think if in a way that we could help the vulnerable, the looked over, or the people who've been marginalized, if we could gravitate towards those things, I think that we'll get to the end of life and saying, I think I lived it the best I could, and I experienced many good things along the way because I leveraged the power that I had. Maybe it was a little at one point, maybe it was more at another point, to help the vulnerable around me. And I think that we'll bump into the gospel of grace if we do so. That is not a value in American life right now. And that's why our Christian discipleship must go deeper than the currents of our day. Because people do want to carve out their own space, and they want to defend it, and they'll push people all the way in order to get it. But the gospel calls us again and again. We see Jesus do this again and again. Those who are vulnerable, those who are picked on, those who are looked over, like those people need an advocate. They need an ally. And it's going to take courage to be people like that. And so hopefully we can be discipled towards those patterns and behaviors and values, so that we could truly be proud of what we were a part of over the tenor of our life because we decided to go there. So
that's what heroes do, right? Heroes defend the vulnerable. That's what they do. That's why we love these movies. Because our heart is drawn to that.
Yes, absolutely. It's a good segue.
Okay, well, I'm not going to be able to see it this weekend, but whenever I see Thunderbolts, I'll give you, and I'll try to remember to give you all an update.
So no spoilers.
No spoilers. I don't know.
You're going to have like headphones on.
Yes.
All weekend long, right?
Will.
So no one spoils it.
We're going to start leaking out.
Yeah.
All right, that was good, Joe. Thank you.
That's a good conversation.
Thank you, Bucky Barnes.
Yeah, Bucky.
And thanks to you. Thanks for watching. We've got 3 more.
Yeah.
So we'll enjoy it while it lasts.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a great week, everybody. See you later.
See you next time.